The air in the ward was cold and bright, but the moment felt hot and cruel. Dr. Sam stopped at the foot of the bed, his jaw tight. He pointed at the old woman lying there, her head wrapped in a thick bandage, her ankara old and stained with dust. "She shouldn't be here," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Two senior nurses snickered. One covered her mouth, the other rolled her eyes and whispered, "This is a private hospital. Let her go to a clinic." On the bed, the old woman's fingers shook as she lifted her hands, begging, "Please, help me." Tears slid into the corners of her ears. Down the hallway, a junior nurse named Sonia stood frozen, holding a tray of supplies. Her heart thumped in her chest. She had cleaned the wound. She had wrapped the bandage. She had called for help, and this was the help. Dr. Sam turned, disgust on his face. "Get her out of observation," he said. "She can't afford us." He walked away. The senior nurses followed him, laughing softly as if the groans of pain were a joke. Sonia looked at the old woman, at the grey hair peeking from the bandage, at the shaking lips, at the small torn handbag clutched to her belly like a shield. The old woman whispered again, "Please, somebody, my child." The fluorescent lights hummed. The heart rate monitor beeped. Through the window, Lagos traffic roared like the sea. Sonia made a choice. She pushed the tray to the side and stepped to the bed. "Ma, I'm here," she said, voice low. "I won't leave you." The old woman turned her head. Her eyes were full of pain and dignity. "What is your name, my daughter?" "Sonia." "God bless you, Sonia." And then the old woman slid a small old phone into Sonia's palm. "Please," she whispered, "call my son." The screen lit up with cracks like spiderweb. One bar of battery. One name saved at the top. Henry. Sonia swallowed. Her fingers shook as she pressed call. The ringtone barely made it through one full loop before a deep voice answered. "Hello?" Sonia looked at the old woman. The old woman gave a tiny nod. "Go on." Sonia lifted her chin. "Hello, sir. Please don't be alarmed. I am Nurse Sonia at Lagos Ultra-Modern Hospital. Your mother." The old woman's hand tapped Sonia's wrist. "Let me speak to him," she whispered. Sonia put the phone to the old woman's ear. The old woman tried to steady her voice. It came out thin and brave. "Hello, Henry. This is your mother. I had an accident on the way from the village. I am at the hospital. They are refusing to treat me. I am dying here, my son." Her mouth trembled. She closed her eyes and took a long, painful breath. "Please," the old woman whispered. "Listen to Nurse Sonia. She will give you the address." Sonia took the phone back, pressed it to her ear, and spoke fast before the battery died. "Emergency Ward B, first floor. She's on bed 3. Please hurry." There was a pause that felt like a cliff. "I'm on my way," the voice said. Then the line cut. The phone screen went black. Sonia stood very still. She could hear her own breathing. She tucked the dead phone under the old woman's pillow and checked the bandage again. Firm but gentle. "Help is coming," she said. The old woman squeezed Sonia's fingers and tried to smile, but a wave of pain crossed her face like a shadow. Her legs twitched. Her chest rose and fell too fast. Sonia darted to the cart, drew a soft blanket, and tucked it around the old woman's shoulders. She checked the pulse again too quick. She checked the pupils, one a little slower than the other. Not good. She needed a doctor. A real one. Right now. She cracked open the ward door. Dr. Sam stood at the counter with the two senior nurses, laughing about a weekend brunch. He didn't even look in Sonia's direction. Sonia stepped out, kept her voice steady. "Doctor, bed 3 is unstable. She needs immediate." He waved her off without turning. "Then move her to general. This is private care." "Sir, she's actively crashing. She needs fluids, and..." He spun, eyes hard. "No." A sharp breath. "No equipment, no drugs, no bed for someone who cannot pay." "I said what I said." The senior nurses tilted their heads, a slow, mean smile settling on one of them. "Don't stress yourself, sweetheart," she told Sonia. "This is Lagos, not charity." The word stung. Sonia thought of the oath on graduation day. She thought of her own mother, who sold fruits by the roadside and sent her to school. She thought of the old woman's shaking hands. Sonia stepped back into the ward and closed the door. She locked it. The old woman's eyelids fluttered. "Did he hear me?" "Yes," Sonia said. "He's coming." She pushed the oxygen line closer to the old woman's face and raised the head of the bed a little to ease the breathing. She whispered, "Stay with me, Ma. Count with me 1, 2, 3. The old woman tried, but her eyes rolled. Her back arched. Her breath came in little bursts like a broken whistle. Sonia pressed the call button. No one came. She pressed again. Nothing. She grabbed the manual chart and scribbled vitals. She whispered to herself to stay calm. She adjusted the bandage at the temple, no fresh bleed. Good. She checked for hidden injuries at the ribs tender, but no obvious crack. Better. She scanned for a bruise, a swelling, a sign she was missing. Time moved like slow thunder. Cars honked outside. The ceiling fan clicked. The door banged. Dr. Sam pushed it open with his elbow, annoyed. Why is this door locked? He spotted Sonia by the bed. We have rules, nurse. She needs urgent care, Sonia said, body between the doctor and the bed. At least start fluids while we confirm payment. Or move her. We are not a government hospital, he said. Rules are rules. The old woman let out a sound like a small animal. Please. Dr. Sam rolled his eyes. Keep her stable without using private resources. He looked directly at Sonia. If you want to play hero, do it outside my ward. He left again. The senior nurses followed, their perfume trailing behind them. Laughter, jokes, footsteps. Sonia stood in the quiet and felt the weight of the room settle on her shoulders. She knew she could get in trouble. She also knew she could not stand by. She pulled a spare saline line from a supply drawer, one she had signed in earlier for another patient who had been discharged an hour ago. She hung it quickly and set a slow drip, eyes on the old woman's face. I will answer for this, she whispered. But you will not die because someone laughed. The old woman's fingers loosened. Her breathing eased, just a little. Her eyes drifted, then blinked back, like a candle fighting wind. Thank you, she mouthed. Save your strength, Sonia said, voice shaking with a fierce kind of calm. Help is... A shout cut through the hallway. Heavy boots, a rush of sound like a storm entering a quiet town. Sonia's head snapped up. Through the ward glass, she saw 3 men in dark suits stepping off the elevator. Security. A 4th man walked between them with the stillness of someone used to being obeyed. He wore a simple, fine shirt and trousers. His face was set like stone, but his eyes were burning. The receptionist ran behind them, breathless. Dr. Sam hurried forward, fixing his smile as if pinning it with a needle. The senior nurses straightened their caps. The man in front did not slow down. He spoke once to the receptionist. She pointed at the ward door. He pushed the door open. He stepped inside. He saw the old woman on the bed. The fire in his eyes broke into something raw and human. His jaw trembled. He reached for the bed rail with one hand, as if the ground might shift. Where is my mother's doctor? He asked, his voice quiet and dangerous. Dr. Sam opened his mouth. No sound came out. Sonia thought of the voice on the phone. The deep voice that said, I'm on my way. The man turned to the room, scanning every face, then fixed on Sonia like a searchlight. You, he said, not unkind, just urgent. You called me? What happened to my mother here? The old woman stirred at the sound of his voice. Her breath hitched. Her eyes fluttered open, then closed again as a weak shiver ran through her body. Monitors began to beep faster. A nurse outside yelled, Crash cart. The doorframe felt like it bent inward with the pressure of the moment. Dr. Sam finally found his voice. Sir Mr. Henry, welcome. The man's head snapped toward him. Mr. Henry, the receptionist whispered, owner of the hospital. The entire ward went silent, like someone had pulled the plug on the world. Sonia's fingers tightened around the bed rail as the old woman's heart rate climbed, then stuttered. The man Henry stepped closer to the bed and reached for his mother's hand. Mama, he said, voice breaking. The monitor screamed into a jagged tone. Sonia's training took over. Move, she shouted, already reaching for the emergency kit. Dr. Sam, pale, lunged for the cabinet. The senior nurses fumbled for gloves. The security guards backed to the wall. The receptionist clutched the door. Henry did not let go of his mother's hand. Sonia's eyes flashed to his. Sir, please, space. He stepped back one pace, but his eyes never left his mother's face. Sonia pressed the mask, checked the airway, and called the rhythm. The room pulsed with fear. And just as the first shock pads came out of their casing, the lights on the monitor flickered, then dropped into a flat, terrible line. The flat tone of the heart monitor echoed through the ward like a scream no one wanted to hear. For a moment, no one moved. Everyone froze, except Sonia. "Clear," she shouted. Her hands trembled as she placed the defibrillator pads on Madam Agnes's chest. A jolt of electricity flashed. The old woman's body jerked, then fell still again. The monitor flickered one green line, then nothing. "Again!" Sonia barked. Dr. Sam hesitated. Sweat rolled down his temple. "Her vitals are gone." "It's useless," he muttered. Henry's deep voice sliced through the air. "You touch that plug again, doctor, or I swear you'll never work in this city." The authority in his tone made the entire room snap awake. Sonia charged another shock. "Clear!" Another pulse of light filled the room. This time, the monitor stuttered, then jumped. A breath of life returned. Madam Agnes gasped weakly, her chest rising. Sonia pressed a hand to her shoulder. "She's back," she whispered. Henry exhaled, eyes glistening. Thank God. He looked around the ward, the expensive tiles, the cold fluorescent lights, the frightened faces of staff who had mocked his mother moments ago. His jaw tightened. Who was in charge of this ward? No one answered. "I said who was in charge." Henry's voice boomed. Dr. Sam finally stepped forward, trying to compose himself. "Sir, I was the attending doctor on call. We didn't know who she was. She didn't have a file, no deposit, and—" Henry turned slowly toward him. His voice dropped to a deadly calm. "So you left a dying woman untreated? Because she looked poor?" The silence that followed was suffocating. "She shouldn't have been here, sir," one of the senior nurses murmured, trembling. "We thought she was—" Henry raised a hand. "Say it." The nurse's lips quivered. "We thought she was—" "A beggar." Henry's eyes darkened. "A beggar." He took a step forward. "That beggar is my mother." The words hit like thunder. Everyone in the room froze, the nurses, the receptionist peeking through the glass, even the guards at the door. Dr. Sam's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sonia's heart pounded. She had guessed the man was powerful, his composure, the way everyone bowed when he entered. But to realize this was his hospital, the very place that had humiliated his mother, her breath caught. Henry looked at Sonia now, his eyes softer. You're the one who called me." Sonia nodded, her voice shaking. "Yes, sir. She begged me to. I couldn't just watch her die." For the first time since he entered, Henry's face broke not with anger, but with gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly. He turned to his head of security. "Lock down the ward. No one leaves until I say so." The guards moved instantly, shutting the glass doors and standing firm at both ends of the corridor. The soft hum of air conditioning filled the tense silence. Henry stepped closer to Dr. Sam. "Tell me," he said, "what oath did you take when you became a doctor?" Sam's throat bobbed. "To save lives. To save lives," Henry repeated, his voice rising. "Not to count wallets, not to judge by clothing. To save lives." Sam's face went pale. "Sir, please, you let my mother almost die in my own hospital," Henry said, his voice trembling with fury. "And you laughed." He looked around. "All of you. You mocked an old woman because she didn't look rich enough." No one spoke. The air was thick with guilt. Madam Agnes stirred faintly, whispering, "Henry." He rushed to her bedside and took her hand. "I'm here, Mama." Her lips quivered. "Don't shout. You'll hurt yourself." He forced a small smile. "You scared me, Mama." Her eyes fluttered open, faint but clear. Then she turned her gaze toward Dr. Sam and the nurses. "Those people, they left me. If not for this young nurse." She reached for Sonia's hand and squeezed it weakly. "I would be gone." Henry's eyes glistened. He looked at Sonia, then back at his mother. "You rest now. I'll handle everything." He stood, his expression turning steel cold again. "Dr. Sam," he said, "you're suspended, effective immediately. And you," he pointed at the senior nurses, "pack your things before I call security to do it for you." The nurses began to cry. "Please, sir. We didn't know." "That's the point," Henry snapped. "You never cared to know." Dr. Sam tried to step forward. "Sir, I've served this hospital for 8 years, and in those 8 years, how many poor patients have you ignored?" Henry's voice rose again. How many mothers, how many fathers, how many people like times her times did you leave to die? Sam's voice broke. Sir, please, get out of my sight. Security moved closer. Sam lowered his head, humiliated, and walked out quietly with the two senior nurses following behind. Henry turned to Sonia, the only one still standing beside his mother's bed. What's your name again? Sonia, sir. He nodded slowly, studying her face. Sonia, he said, you did more than your job today. You saved my mother's life when everyone else failed her. You'll hear from me tomorrow. Sonia blinked, unsure if she was in trouble or being thanked. Sir, I just did what anyone should have done. Henry gave a faint smile. Not everyone would have done it. He looked down at his mother again, brushing her grey hair gently off her forehead. Mama, rest. You're safe now. Madam Agnes smiled weakly. God bless this girl. She has a good heart. Keep her close, Henry. Henry chuckled softly. I will, Mama. I promise. He turned back to Sonia, his tone softening again. Stay with her tonight. Don't let anyone move her without my permission. Yes, sir. As Henry walked out, the staff at the reception desk bowed in silence. The news had already spread. The old woman in Ward B was the billionaire's mother. The entire hospital buzzed like a hive of whispers. Inside the ward, Sonia adjusted the drip, checked the pulse again, and sat by Madam Agnes's bedside. The old woman watched her with kind eyes. My son is a good man, she said quietly. But pain can make even good men forget how to smile. Sonia smiled gently. He smiled when he saw you, Ma. Madam Agnes closed her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek. That's because he almost lost me. Sonia wiped the tear gently. He didn't. You're safe now. For a while, the ward was quiet again. The beeping was steady, the city lights blinking faintly through the window blinds. Then, in the corridor outside, a man in a suit whispered to Henry, Sir, should we call in replacements for the dismissed staff? Henry nodded. Yes, new doctors. People who still have hearts. He looked back at the ward through the glass. Inside, Sonia sat by his mother, adjusting her pillow carefully, whispering softly to her. The sight tugged at something in his chest. He didn't know her story yet. But he knew one thing, that kindness wasn't something you could fake. He placed a hand on the glass and whispered under his breath, Thank you, Sonia. From the bed, Madam Agnes stirred again and whispered to Sonia, her voice barely above a breath. When I first saw you, I thought I saw an angel. Now I know I was right. Sonia smiled through tears. Rest, Ma. Tomorrow will be better. Outside, the night deepened over Lagos, a night that had nearly ended in tragedy, but instead began something unexpected. And as Henry walked out into the cool night air, one thought echoed in his mind. Sometimes the poorest hands carry the richest hearts, but neither of them knew that this one night would change both their lives forever. 2 weeks had passed since the night Madam Agnes nearly died in her own son's hospital. The story spread quietly through Lagos like a rumor wrapped in shame. Every nurse whispered it in the hallways. The old woman the staff mocked was the owner's mother, but for Sonia, life hadn't changed much. She still wore her neat blue uniform, still greeted every patient with a gentle smile, still worked long shifts in Ward B. Yet people now treated her differently. Some looked at her with respect, others with jealousy. And though she tried to stay humble, she couldn't forget Henry's eyes that night, the way his anger melted when he saw his mother breathe again. It was a bright Thursday when the security officer at the main gate walked into the ward. Nurse Sonia, he called, his voice uncertain. Madam Agnes is asking for you. Sonia's heart lifted. She's awake? Yes, Ma. And her son is with her. She straightened her uniform and hurried down the hallway. As she entered the VIP recovery room, sunlight poured through the glass wall, bathing the room in a soft golden glow. Madam Agnes sat up on the bed, cheerful and stronger, her wrapper neatly tied. Beside her stood Henry in a crisp grey suit, a calm smile softening his face. Sonia, Madam Agnes said with joy. My angel is here. Sonia smiled shyly. Good morning, Ma. Henry turned. Good morning, Nurse Sonia. For a moment, Sonia felt the weight of his gaze steady, grateful, almost gentle. How are you feeling today, Ma? Sonia asked, checking the drip line. Madam Agnes laughed softly. Much better. These new nurses hover like mother hens. But I told Henry, I want my nurse, the one who saved me. Sonia blushed. Ma, I only did what I should. Henry chuckled. You call saving my mother's life what you should? Then we need more people like you in this hospital. He gestured to a chair. Please, sit. Sonia hesitated. Sir, I'm still on duty. Then consider this part of your duty, he said with a faint smile. She sat carefully at the edge of the chair. Henry's tone grew serious. I've reviewed everything that happened. The staff who neglected my mother have been dismissed, and I've ordered new training programs for all departments. Empathy first, policy second. Sonia nodded quietly. That's good, sir. He leaned forward. But there's something else. He opened a brown envelope and slid it across the table. That's for you. Sonia blinked. Sir? A small token of appreciation. And keys to a car parked outside. She stared, speechless. Sir, I can't. You can, Henry interrupted. My mother insisted. Madam Agnes smiled, eyes glimmering. You didn't ask who I was before helping me. That's why God will bless you. Tears filled Sonia's eyes. Thank you, Ma. Sir, this is too much. Henry shook his head. Not for what you did. The silence that followed was warm and full. Madam Agnes reached for Sonia's hand. When I was lying there, in pain and fear, you were the only face I saw that looked at me with kindness. I'll never forget that. Sonia's throat tightened. I'm just glad you're okay, Ma. Henry smiled softly. We'll make sure you're rewarded properly. You've been promoted to senior nurse, effective next week. Sonia gasped. Sir, thank you. He stood and extended his hand. No, thank you. When their hands touched, a spark of quiet recognition passed between them, the kind that words couldn't explain. Sonia felt her pulse skip, but she quickly withdrew, embarrassed. Henry noticed, but he said nothing. He only smiled and turned to his mother. I'll let you rest, Mama. Madam Agnes winked. You'll come again soon? Yes, Ma. And you too, Sonia, she said, smiling knowingly. Don't disappear. Sonia laughed nervously. I won't, Ma. That night, as Sonia walked home through the busy Lagos streets, her mind replayed everything: the gratitude in Henry's eyes, the warmth in Madam Agnes's voice. She had lived most of her life quietly, avoiding trouble, keeping her head down, but that single act of kindness had changed everything. When she reached her small one-room apartment, she sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the car key Henry had given her. She couldn't even drive. She smiled, shaking her head. God, what are you doing with my life? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? A familiar deep voice came through. Nurse Sonia? Her breath caught. Sir Mr. Henry? Yes. I hope I'm not calling too late. No, sir. It's fine. I just wanted to thank you again. Mama keeps talking about you. She says you should come by tomorrow for dinner, if you're free. Sonia froze. Dinner? With the billionaire owner of the hospital? Sir, I don't know if... He chuckled. Don't worry, it's just dinner. Mama wants to cook for the woman who saved her life. I'd appreciate it if you said yes. Sonia hesitated, then smiled. Okay, sir, I'll come. Good, I'll send my driver by 7. Rest well, Nurse Sonia. The call ended. Sonia sat in silence, her heart racing. The next evening, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside Sonia's small apartment building. The driver stepped out, polite and formal. Good evening, Ma. Mr. Henry sent me. Sonia wore a modest yellow gown, her hair neatly tied back, her nerves trembling. The drive to the mansion felt unreal: wide gates, manicured gardens, lights that glowed like stars. When she stepped inside, Madam Agnes welcomed her with open arms. My daughter, she said joyfully. You're even more beautiful outside that uniform. Sonia blushed. Thank you, Ma. Henry appeared from the dining hall, wearing a simple white shirt. You're right on time, he said, smiling. Dinner was warm and easy: pounded yam, egusi soup, laughter, and small stories from Madam Agnes about her village life. Sonia laughed more than she had in months. After the meal, Henry offered to show her the garden. The night air was cool, scented with jasmine. The garden lights shimmered softly over the fish pond. Thank you for coming, he said, hands in his pockets. It means a lot to my mother. She's a wonderful woman, Sonia said. I feel like I've known her for years. Henry nodded. She's all I have. I lost my father when I was young. She raised me alone. Sonia looked at him quietly. She must be proud of you. He gave a small smile. Sometimes I wonder if I've made her proud. I built a hospital to help people, but I let pride fill its walls. I didn't even know how badly things had gotten until she almost died here. You fixed it, Sonia said softly. That's what matters. Henry turned to her. And you reminded me what kindness looks like. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to slow the fountain's soft splash, the hum of the night, the closeness of two people who weren't supposed to meet, but did. Sonia looked away first. Sir, I mean Henry, you should rest. Your mother might need you. He smiled gently. You just called me Henry. Her cheeks flushed. I'm sorry. Don't be, he said. I like how it sounds. They both laughed softly, and for the first time in a long time, Henry felt something he hadn't felt since before his father died. Peace. As Sonia left that night, Madam Agnes waved from the balcony, smiling knowingly. Inside the car, Sonia looked back through the tinted glass. Henry stood by the gate, watching until the car disappeared into the Lagos night. Neither of them knew that this dinner would be the beginning of something that would soon shake both their worlds: love, loyalty, and a truth yet to be revealed. The days that followed the dinner felt like something new had quietly entered Sonia's life. It wasn't loud or obvious, it was the soft hum of unexpected happiness, a feeling that made even the longest hospital shifts feel lighter. Every morning, Madam Agnes would send word through her driver, "Tell my daughter Sonia, I need my injections today." Every evening, Sonia would find herself in the Benson mansion again, sometimes to check the old woman's vitals, other times simply to talk, laugh, or listen to her stories about Henry's childhood. But it wasn't just Madam Agnes anymore. Henry had started finding reasons to be around too. One evening, after Sonia had finished adjusting Madam Agnes's pillow, Henry appeared at the doorway, sleeves rolled up, holding 2 cups of tea. "Doctor's orders," he said playfully. "Green tea for both of us." Sonia chuckled. "You're not my doctor, sir." "Then call me Henry. We've already shared a dinner and a miracle." "Sir feels too formal." Sonia smiled shyly and took the cup. "Okay, Henry." They sat at the balcony, the city lights blinking below them. A soft wind carried the smell of rain and jasmine. "Sometimes," Henry said quietly, "I still hear that machine in my head, the flat line. I thought I lost her." Sonia looked at him. "But you didn't. She's alive, and you made sure no one else will go through that again." Henry nodded. "Still, it changes something inside you. That moment taught me more than all my years in business." Sonia's voice softened. "What did it teach you?" "That money means nothing if kindness is missing." He turned to her, eyes steady. "And that there are still good people in this world." Their eyes met again, a long, silent exchange that neither dared to break. Henry looked away first, smiling faintly. "Tell me something, Sonia. Why did you become a nurse?" She smiled wistfully. "Because my mother was once in a government hospital for weeks, ignored because we couldn't pay the deposit. I promised myself I'd never treat anyone that way. Never." Henry watched her in silence, deeply moved. "And you kept that promise." Sonia looked down, suddenly shy. "Maybe God sent your mother to test me." "Or maybe," Henry said softly, "he sent you to test me." The night deepened, and the unspoken warmth between them grew stronger, gentle, genuine, and dangerous. Over the next few weeks, Sonia became part of Madam Agnes's life. They would sit together on the porch, shelling groundnuts, or watching birds land on the mango tree. Sometimes Madam Agnes would talk about her late husband. Sometimes she would tease Sonia about Henry. "You know," Madam Agnes said one afternoon, smiling mischievously, "my son hardly talks to anyone outside work. But since he met you, he has started laughing again." Sonia laughed nervously. "Ma, please don't say that. I'm old, not blind," the woman said with a chuckle. "He looks at you the way his father used to look at me, like a man seeing the sun for the first time." Sonia's cheeks flushed. "We're just friends, Ma." Madam Agnes grinned. "That's how it starts, my daughter." Henry appeared then, carrying a small bag of groceries. "Mama, stop embarrassing her," he said, smiling. Sonia stood. "Good afternoon, Henry." "Good afternoon, Sonia." His eyes lingered for a moment longer than they should have. Madam Agnes laughed knowingly. "I'll be in my room. Don't forget my medication." She winked and left them alone. The air felt suddenly different, quiet, charged. Henry cleared his throat. "Ignore her." She thinks every woman I speak to is her future daughter-in-law. Sonia laughed softly, but the sound trembled slightly. She's sweet. Henry nodded, smiling. She is. But she's not wrong about one thing: you've brought light back into this house. Sonia looked down, her heart pounding. You're just saying that because I helped her. No, Henry said. I'm saying that because it's true. The next morning at the hospital, whispers filled the hallways again. Have you heard? One nurse said. The owner has been visiting Ward B almost every day. Another snickered. Visiting her. Sonia tried to ignore them, but their words followed her like shadows. Later that day, Dr. Aisha, the new head of nursing, called her into the office. Sonia, she said sharply, I hear you've been spending a lot of time with Mr. Henry Benson. Is that true? Sonia's pulse quickened. Ma, I attend to his mother daily. She still needs follow-ups. Aisha crossed her arms. Be careful. People are talking. They say you're getting special favors: the car, the promotion. You don't want people to think you're earning your way up differently. Sonia's face burned. Ma, that's unfair. I worked hard for everything. Aisha's tone softened slightly. I'm not judging you, Sonia. Just be wise. Men like him, they live in another world. Sonia nodded slowly, forcing a polite smile. But as she left the office, her chest felt heavy. The words stuck to her heart like thorns. That evening, she called Henry. Henry, maybe I should stop visiting the house for a while, she said quietly. Why? People are talking. It might affect the hospital. Henry was silent for a moment. Let them talk. You've done nothing wrong. Still, I don't want trouble. He sighed. Sonia, I didn't build this hospital to let gossip decide what's right. If anyone has a problem, they can come to me. Henry, please, she said softly. Just until things calm down. He hesitated. All right, but promise me something. What? That you'll still pick my calls. Sonia smiled sadly. I will. 3 nights later, as Sonia finished her shift, her phone rang again. It was Henry. Hi, he said, voice light. I just wanted to check if you made it home safe. I'm just locking up, she said, smiling. Good. Drive carefully. I will, sir. I mean, Henry. They both laughed. Moments later, as Sonia walked through the hospital's side gate toward the car park, she saw bright headlights flash across the street. It was too fast, too close to run. She froze. A loud screech. A horn. Then everywhere became dark. When Sonia opened her eyes, the world was white. The ceiling lights blurred above her. Her arm ached. Her head throbbed. A gentle voice came through the haze. Sonia, can you hear me? She turned her head slowly. It was Henry, his face pale, eyes red as if he hadn't slept in days. Thank God, he whispered. You're awake. Sonia's voice was weak. What happened? You were hit by a car near the hospital. The driver fled, but we're checking the cameras. Her lips trembled. The car. Did anyone? No, no one else was hurt. Just you. He exhaled shakily. You scared me. Sonia blinked, tears pooling. I told you I'd stop coming around. Now you're the one sitting by my bed. Henry smiled sadly. Maybe it's my turn to take care of you. Madam Agnes entered quietly, holding a bowl of soup. I told you, Henry, she said gently, setting it down. What's meant to be will always find its way, even through pain. She touched Sonia's hand. Rest, my daughter. You are family now. Sonia's eyes filled. Family? She whispered. Henry nodded, his hand tightening around hers. Yes, he said softly. And I'm never letting anything happen to you again. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, and rain began to fall, a cleansing rain that washed away everything but truth. But as the lightning flashed against the window, a shadow stood at the edge of the corridor, a man watching them quietly, holding a phone. And whatever he recorded would soon shake their peace once again. Rain hammered the glass windows of the hospital that night. The sound echoed through the quiet hallways like a warning no one could hear yet. Sonia lay in her hospital bed, still weak but recovering. The doctors said she would be fine after a few days of rest. Henry had barely left her side since the accident, sleeping on the sofa beside her, attending meetings through phone calls, and ensuring no one disturbed her. But outside that peaceful room, something dark was already spreading. By morning, gossip sites and WhatsApp groups were ablaze. A short video had surfaced online, secretly recorded through the hospital corridor window. It showed Henry sitting by Sonia's bed, holding her hand gently while whispering something to her. Madam Agnes stood behind them, smiling softly. The caption read, "Billionaire Henry Benson's secret affair with his nurse." The comments poured in. "So, this is how promotions happen in Lagos hospitals. She's beautiful, Shah. Can't blame him. Imagine being the owner's girlfriend. Life goes sweet." By noon, the clip had already gone viral across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The hospital's PR line buzzed non-stop. When Henry's assistant, Philip, rushed into the ward with a pale face, Henry instantly sensed trouble. "Sir," Philip whispered, showing him his phone. "You need to see this." Henry's eyes narrowed as the video played, his jaw clenched. "Who recorded this?" "We're checking the CCTV logs, but it looks like one of the staff leaked it." Henry looked at Sonia, who had just woken up, confused by the sudden tension. "What's wrong?" she asked. He turned the phone toward her. Sonia's face went white. "Oh no," she whispered. "Henry, I swear I didn't." He stopped her gently. "I know, Sonia. You don't have to explain anything to me." And then rebutted, "But everyone will think. I don't care what they think." His tone was calm but fierce. "You saved my mother. You saved me. That's all that matters." Madam Agnes entered then, holding a shawl. When she saw the video on the phone, her face hardened. "Whoever did this has no soul," she said. "They want to destroy what God is building." Henry nodded. "Not just destroy. They want to humiliate her." Hours later, Henry called an emergency meeting at the hospital's boardroom. The senior staff sat in silence. The video paused on the projector screen. Henry's voice was cold. "Whoever leaked this will face the full weight of the law." No one spoke. Some avoided his eyes. He turned to the IT head. "Can you trace where the footage came from?" "Yes, sir," the man said nervously. "It was uploaded from one of the staff phones. A temporary cleaner, assigned to Ward B, a man named Daniel." Henry's fist tightened. "Find him." "Already done, sir. He left his shift last night and hasn't returned." "Then alert security and send his details to the police." The room was tense. Henry continued, "And for the record, Nurse Sonia did nothing wrong. Anyone caught spreading this slander will be dismissed immediately." He slammed his hand on the table, once not in anger, but in finality. "This hospital stands for compassion, not gossip. If that's too hard for anyone here, the door is open." The board members nodded quickly, their faces pale. Back in her ward, Sonia scrolled through her phone, despite Henry asking her not to. The cruel comments, the mocking memes, the edited pictures, they hurt more than her injuries. Tears blurred her vision. She threw the phone aside and covered her face. Madam Agnes, sitting nearby, looked at her with pity. "My daughter, you must not let them break you." "They're saying horrible things, Mama," Sonia whispered. "That I trapped Henry. That I did this for money. That I pretended to save you for attention. I can't." Her voice cracked. "I can't take it." Madam Agnes reached over and held her hand. "The truth doesn't need to shout, my child. It always finds its way." Sonia sobbed softly. "But I never wanted fame or trouble. I just wanted to help people." The old woman smiled through sadness. "And that is why God chose you." At that moment, Henry entered, his expression stormy. He set his phone on the table. They found the cleaner. The police picked him up near Aja bus stop. Sonia looked up. "Why would he do this?" Henry sighed. He confessed. "Someone paid him to record the clip." "Paid him?" Henry nodded grimly. "By a rival hospital group. They wanted to ruin our image before our expansion deal next week. You were just the easy target." Sonia's jaw dropped. "So they used me?" "Yes," Henry said, his tone softening. "And I'm so sorry you're suffering for something you didn't cause." Sonia wiped her eyes. "It's not your fault." Henry crouched beside her bed, his eyes full of sincerity. "It is, somehow. You stepped into this chaos because of my mother, because of me." Madam Agnes smiled faintly. "Stop apologizing and start doing the right thing." Henry looked at her curiously. "And what's that, Mama?" "Tell the world the truth." The next morning, a crowd of journalists filled the hospital lobby. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered, waiting for Henry's statement. Henry stepped to the podium beside Sonia and his mother. He looked calm, but his voice carried power. "Yesterday, a private video of me and Nurse Sonia was leaked," he began. "The story attached to it is false." The cameras clicked rapidly. "This woman," he said, pointing to Sonia, is not someone to shame. She's the nurse who saved my mother's life when others walked away. She represents what this hospital stands for: compassion, integrity, and courage." Sonia's eyes welled up. The room fell silent. Henry continued, "To those spreading lies, remember that humanity is not defined by wealth, but by kindness. And to Nurse Sonia, I owe my family's life. She deserves respect, not ridicule." Madam Agnes stepped forward, holding the microphone with trembling hands. "She's like a daughter to me," she said, voice breaking, "and I would be proud to see her become part of our family forever." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sonia's heart skipped. Henry turned to his mother, smiling faintly. "Mama." Madam Agnes winked. "You're welcome." The reporters burst into applause. The story changed overnight from scandal to inspiration. Hashtags trended. Nurse of kindness number Henry and Sonia. Compassion over wealth. Days later, the hospital returned to its calm rhythm. Sonia's name was now on the lips of every grateful patient, every nurse who remembered why they joined the profession. Henry visited her one last time before her discharge. "Are you ready to leave?" She smiled. "More than ready. I miss my small apartment." "And then right," he chuckled. "That apartment's too small now. You'll bump into your awards." Sonia laughed, shaking her head. "You're not serious." He handed her a small box. "Open it." Inside was a ring, simple, gold, elegant. Her breath caught. "Henry," he took her hand. "When I almost lost my mother, I realized what really matters. Life, love, kindness, and you." Her lips trembled. "You mean?" He knelt slightly beside her bed. "Sonia Okafor, will you marry me?" Madam Agnes entered right then, holding flowers, pretending to be surprised. "Ah," he finally said it. The nurses outside the ward peeked in, whispering excitedly. Sonia covered her mouth, tears falling freely. "Yes, yes, I will." Henry slipped the ring onto her finger and hugged her gently, mindful of her injuries. The entire ward erupted in soft claps and cheers. Madam Agnes smiled through tears. "See, I told you, my daughter. What's meant to be will always find its way." 6 months later, the world that once mocked Sonia now watched her story with admiration. The headlines had changed. The nurse who saved a life and found love. The grand church in Victoria Island was filled with guests, politicians, business moguls, hospital staff, and ordinary people who had followed the story from the beginning. White flowers lined the aisles, and gospel music floated softly through the hall. At the entrance stood Madam Agnes, in an elegant silver lace dress, a matching head tie, and eyes full of tears. Beside her stood Sonia, radiant in a white flowing gown, her veil shimmering under the lights. As the doors opened, the crowd stood. But instead of a father walking the bride down the aisle, it was Madam Agnes. She held Sonia's trembling hand, whispering, "Since your parents aren't here, let me do this honor. Today, I'm your mother." Sonia broke into tears instantly. "Thank you, Mama." Step by step, they walked down the aisle. Guests wiped their eyes. Henry waited at the altar in a white tuxedo trimmed with gold, his smile steady but full of emotion. When they reached the altar, Madam Agnes kissed Sonia's forehead and whispered, "Now go and meet the man God prepared for you." Sonia nodded through tears. When it was time to speak, Sonia's voice shook with emotion. "1 year ago, I was just a nurse doing my job, bandaging wounds, cleaning beds, and praying to make a difference. That night, when Madam Agnes was rushed into the hospital, everyone thought she was a poor, homeless woman. They ignored her. But something in me refused to walk away. The hall went silent. I never knew the woman I helped was the mother of the man who would later become my husband. I never knew that one act of kindness could connect 2 worlds, mine and his. Today, I stand here not as a nurse, not as an employee, but as proof that love finds us when we least expect it." By the time she finished, half the congregation was in tears. Applause filled the hall. Henry took her hand and said, "You didn't just save my mother, Sonia. You saved my heart." As they exchanged rings, Madam Agnes cried openly, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "This is my answered prayer," she whispered. When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, Henry lifted Sonia's veil and kissed her softly as cameras flashed and the choir broke into song. It was the wedding no one would ever forget. Exactly a year later, joy once again filled the Benson mansion. Only this time, it was quieter, gentler, And even more miraculous, in her arms, Sonia held her newborn baby girl wrapped in white linen. Henry stood beside her, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. Madam Agnes sat nearby, smiling wider than she had in years. The baby let out a soft cry, and Sonia laughed, rocking her gently. "Easy, little one." Henry leaned down and kissed both mother and child. "She has your eyes," Sonia smiled. "And your stubborn chin," Madam Agnes chuckled. "Then she's perfect." Henry looked at his mother. "We've decided to name her after you." Madam Agnes froze. "After me?" Sonia nodded. "Yes. Her name is Agnes Benson. The woman who taught us that kindness can save lives deserves to live forever through her." Tears streamed down Madam Agnes's cheeks. She reached out trembling hands and took the baby into her arms. "My namesake," she whispered. "My precious girl." She looked from Sonia to Henry and shook her head softly. "When they left me on that hospital bed, I thought my life was ending. I never knew it was just beginning. Because that night, God sent me an angel. And today, that angel has given me a granddaughter." Sonia wiped her tears, whispering, "It's all God, Mama." Henry smiled, wrapping his arm around his wife. As the baby cooed softly, Madam Agnes kissed her forehead. "If the world ever forgets anything about me," she said, voice breaking, "let them remember this love and kindness never die." Outside the window, the sun poured through the curtains, bathing them in golden light, a reminder that even the darkest nights can end in grace. And there, in that quiet room, full of love, tears, and laughter, the story that began with "she shouldn't be here" had become a story of mercy, miracles, and family. The same hospital that once mocked an old woman now celebrated its first anniversary as the Benson Foundation Medical Center, built on empathy and fairness. Sonia, now chief nursing officer, stood beside Henry, holding their newborn baby girl, Agnes Benson, named after the woman who started it all. Reporters asked Henry what inspired him to rename the hospital. He looked at his wife, smiling. "She shouldn't have been here," he said softly, recalling the words that started it all. "But because one young nurse refused to walk away, my mother lived and I found love." Madam Agnes stood beside them, her wrinkled hands resting proudly on Sonia's shoulder. The crowd clapped, the cameras flashed, and for the first time since that terrible night, everything felt exactly as it should be. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.